saying the coach needs to go, the GM needs to go, or everybody needs to go? I'm lost. What are you saying?
I thought, well, the GM, the coach, and the quarterback is everybody. So I'm saying everybody.
Yeah.
I will just end by saying this and hand it to you. Carson Wentz was facing an historically bad defense last night, and he made them look like the '85 Bears. Right? They couldn't they had like negative 3 yards in their first 5. It was ridiculous. He can't do anything. He's shot. And I blame the enablers on the team and in the media who keep telling him how great he is when he keeps regressing. Why doesn't anyone tell him the truth? Carson Wentz, you stink. But there was greatness in there. But right now it's all messed up. You got to get better.
Okay. Now, before I go into my soliloquy, let me ask you a question, Max Kellerman. Are you aware of how old Carson Wentz is? He's 28.
27.
He's 28 years old.
28.
Well, I'm sorry. They said 28. I'm sorry. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it says right here he's 28 years old. What I'm asking you is this: at the age of 25, were we not saying that he was great, that he was on the verge of greatness?
Yep. He was.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is where you and I part ways is that your criticisms are on point. But when we talk about cleaning house, that means everybody got to go. And I'm of the mindset that Peterson has to go, even though Peterson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And do you know why I believe Peterson has to go? For exactly the reason you said. He don't look like he wants to coach this guy. He doesn't look like he believes in this guy.
Agreed.
He doesn't look like he believes that this is the guy that he wants to ride with. But the Eagles are committed, to $59 million to this man over the next year or two? He ain't going anywhere. So the fact that Carson Wentz ain't going anywhere because you're not going to get anybody to take those numbers, and on top of it all, you got to pay him those numbers. I'm sorry, the head coach, who used to be an offensive coordinator, who used to be a quarterback's coach, that dude has to be held accountable because that's your job. Now, if you were a defensive coordinator, let's say, for example, Max, he was Tony Dungy, or he was Lovie Smith, or he was Mike Tomlin or somebody. Hell, if he was Vic Fangio, well, guess what? Defense is your thing. I brought in a quarterback's coach. I brought in an offensive coordinator to work with this guy, and it's not working out. That would be different. But for Peterson, this is what you do. This is what you're supposed to do. Frank Reich was there as the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I get that. But damn, who brought Frank Reich on his staff? That was Peterson. He was a member of your staff. I'd like to believe y'all communicated. I'd like to believe there's a thing or two here that not only you knew and you taught him, but vice versa. He was able to impart his wisdom upon you so you could have a profoundly positive effect on the franchise quarterback. The fact that the quarterback has regressed, we know that he's had injuries and we understand it. But if we looked at Carson Wentz, Max, and saw him hobbling, if we saw that his legs were never the same, et cetera, I get all of that. But when you look at him and you see that he's healthy, that physically, even though he's getting beat up because the offensive line is trash, they can't protect him, he can't even step back to take a deep breath for crying out loud before they're all over him. Still in all, he's getting up play after play, quarter after quarter, game after game. So I have to look at the coach. You don't play. You're the coach. It's your job to figure out a way to maximize this dude's ability. When you talk about his regression, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm simply saying, wait a minute. When do we look at Peterson? And when do we look at Peterson, Max, and go right to what you said? Think about it, Max, the picture that you painted. You just imagined it. You didn't report it as fact. I'm just talking about one time when you were here on the show and you just utilized your imagination. And you said, imagine Peterson being in that room with Foles, with Carson Wentz, and you talked about what he probably wanted. Well, if you didn't get it, who would know that they were not wanted? It would be Carson Wentz. You're coaching them like you don't want to coach them. So go. That's where I'm at with it.
All right, fellas, let's just get right into it. The Seahawks win. They're back in first place in the NFC West. The Eagles have tumbled out of first place in the NFC East. Not too surprising. Jalen Hurts got on the field for a couple snaps, one pass, one handoff. But key, Jay's been saying this for a while. Is it about time to hand it off at any point now to Jalen Hurts?
No.
Still no. Still no.
You even though
Carson Wentz didn't play great last night, and I understand where Jay's coming from, but I also live in the real world of what these professional owners and general managers and presidents of teams and head coaches have to go through and think about. Sprinkling Jalen Hurts in last night, whatever, 2 plays, whatever it was that he had, that was always going to be the plan. Even though he was taking snaps reportedly with the first team, he's probably taking snaps with the first team all year long. But because Carson Wentz has played so bad, it became sensationalized to a whole nother level. And when you look at it, if you start Jalen Hurts to start, not necessarily starting, but if he was playing a significant amount of snaps last night and started to cook, now you got a huge quarterback controversy with a guy on your books for $50 million in Carson Wentz that you got to make a decision on.
So you're saying if a guy comes in and plays better than the guy that's putrid, that creates another problem?
That creates a huge problem because of the economics. These things are always driven by the money. Now, you asked me if Jay says, well, Key, if they should play him more or start him or look to him. This is what I will say. And, I tend to think that in these situations, I try to think like the coaches and the general managers as opposed to like a fan. I know that they probably should do it, but I also know that next week when they play, if Carson Wentz struggles, now I'm going to take him out because this is my last opportunity and chance. Last night was not my last opportunity and chance. I'm holding on by a thread, right? Next week, it's probably my last chance and opportunity if I lose that game. So if Carson Wentz is throwing the ball in the stands and not playing well or giving the ball to the other team like he did last night on the late drive, that could have put him even closer to Seattle and put the pressure on Russell Wilson. Instead, he throws an interception. He was cooking up to that point. They methodically moved down the field, put him in position. Some would argue they should have took the 3. I'm like, man, go for it. Go ahead and go for it because you got to score. Carson Wentz hasn't been the same guy technically since his ACL out in L.A. when he got hurt right before the Super Bowl. He hasn't been the same. Although last year he showed some good signs late in the year, Jay, but he just hasn't been the same. And as far as Jalen Hurts goes, it's hard to, at this stage of the game, when you got that type of money on the line, is to decide to bench your future, what you believe was your future, right now. You may be able to do it next week, but not last night. You couldn't do it.
I'm over it being Carson Wentz's fault. I'm over it, Key. Last night, Doug Peterson's Monday Night Football coaching performance was a fireable offense. It was a fireable offense. This team has lost their last 7 of 11 games. Watching the debacle between the quarterback competition is straight up embarrassing. It's logicless. He brings Jalen Hurts in for one possession. He completes a pass. He gets snagged very quickly. I know it was part of the strategy, Key. Snagged. But also, there are a lot of other things. Fourth quarter, Carson Wentz going for it on 4th down, being down. You're forcing a pass. He blames certain things on the quarterback. He doesn't blame certain things on the quarterback. Watching him at the podium, every post presser just seems to be more and more embarrassing. And at what point, I know their offensive line has changed so much. I think it was their 10th combination in 11 games that they played. I know that Carson Wentz is running for his life, but it just seems like the way Doug Peterson, I know he has 1 Super Bowl championship, but the way he is handled this year continues to be more and more embarrassing. And the play calling didn't seem like it was at its best last night.
Well, here's what I would say in terms of the Jalen Hurts completion. Well, the first opportunity he had, there was a false start on the right side of the offensive line. The tight end move, the right tackle move. Mm-hmm. Because of the cadence, when you're used to hearing a certain bark out from the quarterback in Carson Wentz, now you got a different cadence with Jalen Hurts. Even though y'all have practiced together some in the week, it's different. And so there was the false start. Although he would have completed that pass, would have been whatever, gain of yards. Then the next time he completes a ball, now all of a sudden they pick up 6 or 7. if you keep him in the game and he's doing that and they're starting to rally behind that, it makes your job difficult as a head coach to now stick with the guy that, and it sounds crazy. You got to follow the money.
I hear
it's
you, Keith.
all about the money, not the right thing.
I'm sorry that driving the ball down the field efficiently can make your job difficult. But that's what coaches' jobs are to do, handle difficult situations. I will give you another example, Key. Early second half, he burns 2 timeouts before he even gets to the fourth. Then he throws a flag for a challenge, and you're like, that's not even a question. There's so many things that Doug Peterson is doing when you watch these games where you're like, what the hell is going on? What is going on? And I'm sitting there saying, fans are roasting Carson Wentz, and I'm like, well, I mean, Carson Wentz is who Carson Wentz is, Key. That's who he is.
But you gotta roast him because the coach, in my opinion,